What was your journey as a data leader, actually, Andy? Did you start on data, or did you start your career in something else?
Started my career as an engineer, as an MVH engineer, which was about capturing large amounts of data, processing that data and presenting it for decision making. So while it's not a classic data career start, it still was built on data. I then went into project management to help deliver our products.
Did you create a data strategy? What did you do? What did you propose?
Data strategy, I built that on 4 pillars. The 4 pillars of data governance, the data dojo, which is our literacy program, the data cloud, which is effectively our technology stack, and then enablement, how we work with the business to create value.
I mean, so many people trained. Are more people approaching you now? Is there something, do you sense something going on?
So I think this is the interesting thing is which of the pillars is the most important. Because if you introduce the technology without the training, then it sits there on the shelf. If you introduce the training without the technology, then people are hungry for a solution that we can't offer yet.
How did you approach data governance at Bentley?
So the first step was to pull together a data council. So that data council is it's chaired not only by myself, but also the CISO and also the data protection officer. To look after together how we get value from and control and govern the data.
I'm sure somebody came to you, hey, Andy, can't you build the Bentley advisor, next month? ChatGPT has done it. Google has done something similar. Why can't you do that?
All the hype around Gen AI, we've seen plenty of pilot use cases, but not many people are able to scale those use cases to large value because you have to get the basics right still. You can't have an AI strategy without a data strategy underpinning it. So time taken to get the basics right will pay dividends later on when we can build the post-processing products later once we've got the basics in place.
Hello, data leaders. Welcome back to the Data Masterclass podcast. Today we have the Chief Data Officer of Bentley Motors with me, Andy Moore, from the UK. Welcome to the Data Masterclass podcast, Andy.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Perfect. And we will talk about your data journey at Bentley. And let's get started with that. It's one of the fast-growing car companies, automotive companies, actually, at the moment. Is that right?
Well, I think Bentley has been on a journey since the Volkswagen Group took us over in 2000. Then we've gone from back then, we were building about 800 cars a year. We're now building somewhere between 14,000, 15,000 cars a year. So that's quite a growth really over that period of time. Yes. And yeah, it's great to see our product portfolio and offering expanding to meet customer needs.
And it's a good time to be in luxury, isn't it? It's a good segment to be in. It seems like luxury segments in general are growing.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a slight cooling in the market currently, but certainly post-COVID, we definitely saw a growth of the market. And yeah, a lot of changing buying habits. Of course, some mega trends have pushed the buying habits back a little bit. But yeah, it's an exciting time in the luxury market because it's a very discerning market. The way we are able to offer our products at the luxury end of the market means we can hyper-personalize the journey. And of course, it's all underpinned by great data as well.
And I looked it up. So the cheapest car costs 200,000, is it euro or pounds?
Yeah, it will be 200,000 euros.
That's where to get going? That's what you need? What's the other part of the scale? How far do you go?
Well, we then have our limited editions like our Bator and Bacala and our recreations like the Blower and the Speed 6. They will be around somewhere between 1 and 2 million, depending on how much the customers personalise and beyond that. But they're the very limited run specials at the top end. So yeah, and most customers will put some level of personalisation into the product as well. So no car will leave a standard. There will be some level of personalisation as well.
Well, I mean, because it's a luxury car, people want to have something special. I actually read in The Economist that one customer actually wanted trees from his own forest. That is a very interesting personalization.
Absolutely.
To make the wooden parts of the Bentley.
Yeah, and it's we can take the wood in as any other veneer supplier and treat it the same as any other,
Yes.
and going through the finishing process. So, yeah, that's a pretty unique story, isn't it? That everything from the embroidery in the headrests or the interior through to even the wood specification. If the customer desires it, then we'll find a way to try and meet those requirements.
It's such a exclusive business where you do so much customization for your customers. What is the role of data in such a company? Because a lot of things are one to one. Does it play a role?
And I think that's the journey we're on, because take personalization then, the Mulliner arm of the business, that's the hyper-personalization. When Mulliner first started, let's say 10 years ago, they had very small numbers of customers and therefore very small number of options. So you could manage it on a spreadsheet. But of course, you scale that, and then there is more data available and more data required. So you have to handle the data in a different way. And then to seamlessly integrate that with the wider business. So most of the cars will start as a standard spec car with then the additional modifications built on top. So you need to manage that data flow as well. The more we understand about the customer, the more we understand about the build process, and the more we understand about ultimately the car as well, as connected car data comes in, it builds this really rich picture of enriching data across the traditional silos. So it's a great way of breaking out of silos as well, because data is common to everyone and everyone can add to the enrichment of the overall picture.
So what would you say are the most valuable data sets, for luxury automotive?
And I think we've got the usual pillars. So we've got the CRM platform, we've got the ERP platform, we've got the HR platforms. But I think what becomes really exciting from a data point of view is connecting across them. So the data that is generated in the CRM system, if you can enrich that with order data, you can enrich that with social media impact data as well. And then you can see this full picture of end-to-end customer journey all articulated in data. So that's the vision and the excitement to see all the way through the full 360 of a customer, but also 360 of a car and 360 of the enterprise as well. It's bringing that picture together that's a really exciting opportunity.
Sounds like a great opportunity, and it sounds also like a great challenge. So when did you start, actually, what was your journey as a data leader, actually, Andy? Did you start in data, or did you start your career in something
So I started my career as an engineer, as an MVH engineer, which was about capturing large amounts of data, processing that data and presenting it for decision making. So while it's not a classic data career start, it still was built on data. I then went into project management to help deliver our products. And then where we first met, effectively through the Volkswagen Group's digitalization drive, we created a digitalization office as well. And that's where we really started to think about data differently, to think about how can we make better use of what's a really rich asset, but bring it out of Excel downloads and siloed local storage. So the journey started in digitalization, looking at self-service analytics, which then led me to pull together a proposal on how we can get better value from data by creating a central data office. That was kind of the journey. And then we had a new CIO 2 years ago, and she was brought in with a transformation remit to transform how IT and technology was used at Bentley. So it's worked well as part of that overall transformation to bring data in as a pillar of the IT transformation, and then for data to play its own role going forwards.
It's great to hear that you could integrate that into the thinking and into the agenda actually of the tech or IT pillar, because it's actually not always that easy in traditional environments to do so. So I guess that was a big advantage to have somebody with that transformational mindset coming in.
Absolutely. And I think certainly for the stage of transformation we're in, to sit next to the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and the head of architecture and IT strategy is really helpful, because they are my colleagues that will help me deliver the data platform for me to then work with the business to leverage it. So I think right now this is a perfect way of driving the transformation, getting us out of siloed on-prem systems, moving into a cloud-first solution to be able to make better use of post-processing all that data.
So let's wind a bit back. I think a few years ago you created the data office. You became the chief data officer officially, the first one.
That is right. Yes.
And I guess with that came a strategy.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Did you create a data strategy?
Yeah.
What did you do? What did you propose?
So the strategy, for the first thing to acknowledge is it's built on the Bentley strategy. So we had a Beyond 100 strategy that was launched a year or two before, right, that effectively takes us into our second century. It talks about sustainability being a core pillar of our values. It talks about moving our products from traditional internal combustion engine into a battery electric driven portfolio. It talks about great people, and it talks about extraordinary customer journeys. So building on that business strategy, then underpinning that with a data strategy, how can we enable and accelerate those the business transformation? Then the data strategy, I built that on 4 pillars. The 4 pillars of data governance, the data dojo, which is our literacy program, the data cloud, which is effectively our technology stack, and then enablement, how we work with the business to create value.
And it's great to hear how you build upon the business strategy. Is there any impact you see from electrification on the data? Are there more requirements or other requirements coming?
I think
through the electrification?
Not necessarily from electrification, but certainly from connected car, which comes with the next generation of electrical architecture, because that allows us to understand more about the car, in battery's case, the battery state, in how the car is used, because that gives us a lot more information, real-time feedback of the customer. Because rather than effectively having to engineer for the most extreme cases and build a plan around that, if we can understand more about the car, we can personalise to an individual how best to use that product, how best to meet their needs, how best to service the car and maintain the extraordinary journeys that they undertake.
And I guess they truly have extraordinary journeys. Many of your customers, since they are quite wealthy and sometimes famous people, and I guess that data privacy becomes a big thing also for this target group. If I would imagine, if you're a pop star, rock star, politician, or an famous entrepreneur, would you like to be tracked by somebody else who hacks you where you drive around? Probably that's a bigger problem than for the average Volkswagen.
Yeah, and I think again that's why it's great to have the CISO next to me, because he can help me ensure that the data is safe in the cloud, and that's his expertise to make sure the data is safe. And I think a lot of people talk about data monetization. When you've got a small customer base but very exclusive customer base, then it's even more important that we protect that data. And make sure it's anonymized where appropriate, and we use it as appropriate to keep the trust. But also there's a value exchange of how we can help a customer get more value from their journey and their association with Bentley. There's always a value exchange, but equally trust of not allowing that data outside of the agreed usage.
And I imagine, having such a strong brand, there's also a level of trust. So that is an asset and a responsibility at the same time, handling
Absolutely.
data.
Yeah, we have to keep that trust always.
Great. So let's dive into your strategy. So you mentioned the data training. In our discussions, I realized that you actually did a lot of training in your company. So the topic of making people data literate was something that you took extremely seriously. Tell us a bit about it.
So I think,
what was the goal?
First of all, you can roll out the best tools in the world, but if people don't know how to use them and get best value from them, then you're not leveraging your investment. And also, I think moving towards a data-driven organization, there is a mindset shift as well with the culture, because it's understanding the impact that everybody has on data, because almost everybody in the business touches data in some way, shape or form, whether they're creating it, whether they're consuming it, whether they're presenting it for decision making. So I think the first stage of the data dojo is the white belt. And that's a 101 to get everybody on the same level of understanding terminology. What is a data cloud? I think us as data professionals take these terms for granted almost. Whereas
yes.
A lot of people might not understand that, might not understand the benefits and what the terminology is. So that was the first point. We want to get a common understanding of data and why it's important and how we can handle it. And then as we
so you mentioned dojo. I think most listeners, I ask you also in our prep, what is the dojo?
So
what
the
is that?
dojo.
Is that something famous in the UK, or is that
Well,
on the
yeah,
data
I think it came
industry?
from a software methodology of trying to go from almost a one-way training environment into a more interactive training environment and trying to embed the training more. So, for example, at Blue Belt as well, there is a small element of a fixed curriculum training, but then a lot of the time is spent with the coach bringing your own data problems and revising bits of the curriculum that you didn't fully understand. So rather than just sitting there on a 5-day virtual boot camp, you've got a lot more support to embed that learning. And again, even at White Belt, even though it's 1 hour a week for 4 weeks, there's still built-in class exercises to really embed the principles and how can you apply it and in your particular area of the business and what use cases is it relevant to you. So that's even at White Belt is proving really powerful to bring out some of these use cases and really help people think differently about it beyond just a glossary of terms.
And I figured that the White Belt is like the entry level. So that is probably the training that a lot of people are doing. So most people would stop probably even at that white level. Is that
yeah, absolutely. If I get my way, then I'll train everybody in the white belt. But as you say, then black belt is effectively a data professional, of which there will only be a small handful in the company. But then blue and brown belt is more people are creating reports and visualizations and post-processing activities. So there'll be a bigger element of that. And then green and orange belt are aimed more at managers how to get best use from data. So it doesn't even talking about building dashboards, but it talks about how to get value from data, how to ask good questions, how to move beyond a fixed PDF report to a more interactive visualization that you can drill down yourself to get the answers that you need rather than having to go back to the source and ask for another cut of the data to get where you need. So it's all about that mindset shift of how we can get value together. Because, of course, any data transformation, we can present the most beautiful dashboards in the world, but if people are still asking for a PowerPoint presentation, then you've kind of got to get beyond that together so that the push and the pull is moving in tandem.
So which one of these belts have been the most popular? Or did you decide to push one more than the others? Did you roll them out all at once? I mean, how did you set
So I guess
this up?
it evolved from when I was in digitalization and we brought in Tableau as a visualization tool. We effectively started with a technical training as Tableau creators, as dashboard creators. And this was during the time of COVID, so we didn't have a lot of choice than to sit on 5-day video calls to do the training. But reflecting on that and how the training was embedded and then how people were using the data afterwards, that led me to look at a different way. And certainly Kirsty, our CIO, had another view of bringing in a dojo for training as well. And that fit perfectly with my desire to have a wide-scale data literacy program. So I suppose the creator layer, if you like, was where it started, but then rapidly followed up by the white belt because it's getting that basic understanding across the business. And then although it is presented as a seven steps from white through to black, it's designed that people can drop in at the relevant levels for them. So yeah, if you need the training in building dashboards, then you can drop straight in at blue belt. If you're a business leader that needs to understand how to get better use of data, drop straight in at orange belt, but still with the idea of trying to get white belt as that common starting point for everybody so that everyone's got the common language.
Did you have a lot of managers and leaders actually taking taking on some of the
Yeah,
training?
we've got a good cross-section of people actually, across all different functions and different levels of experience as well. So it's great to get different levels of management involved as well. Because I think it helps getting that all-round common language to discuss how to get better value from data.
You maybe remember, when I was still with Volkswagen Group, I've been running the Think Data initiative, which was like having a number of streams of democratizing data and creating the data foundations. And one of that was really creating that, company-wide educational training. And we actually created one version exclusively for executives, and we piloted it in one of the brands, and had really people the full day there, like senior managers, the full day talking about data, like listening to geeks explaining them in natural language what data architectures are, data lakes, Hadoop. How Hadoop is different to a classical data warehouse and things like that at that time. Obviously, today you wouldn't talk about Hadoop anymore, but back then that was a thing. And I remember that everyone was thrilled. Like people felt like back in university times, there were lots of questions, lots of interactions. And I think also a lot of gratitude because let's face it, every manager has to deal with that today. So, and most of the stuff that you read is very superficial or it's very difficult to access. So I think these trainings really provide a more plain level field where people can suddenly understand each other, and even, let's say, managers with more traditional backgrounds can start to influence decisions because they get an understanding of what it is about. I found it very interesting to see. I don't know. I wonder if you saw something similar, happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I think it's really interesting how the seeds you sowed as part of Think Data, we're now starting to scale them and really get value from them. Sometimes in automotive, it takes a while for some of these ideas to really take growth and scale. But interesting the journey from there. But absolutely. And I think we talk about teaching data to business people and teaching business to data people, because there can be a gap, can't there, of pure data people that have come from a very technical background, know the technology very well, but maybe can't articulate how to add value to a business problem. And then vice versa, the business people know very well their business challenges and problems that they want solving, but don't know how to use data and then AI and the different strands of AI to actually get solutions to help them. So I think, breaking or bridging that divide and shrinking that divide as much as possible is really important to get the value from the data.
Yes, absolutely. And I often observe that it's like living on two different planets, and both are experts, but on different things. And the issue is not that, like, you don't need to understand fully the other planet, but you need to be able to ask the right questions. And the other planet needs to come back with an answer that the other person can understand. And I think that is one of the issues, that translation kind of layer. And if the techies don't understand the business and the business don't understand the tech part or the data part, that's incredibly difficult. And I've seen that literacy programs can really help here a lot. And I think what you've done was quite large scale. I haven't seen that at that scale very often. But I think that that another way is also to have these translator roles where you have people in the data teams talking to the different business departments and trying to translate between the data tech people and the business people. I'm wondering if you have experimented with something like that, or if you see yourself as that translator, as the chief data officer.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, as a data leader, my main advantage at Bentley is my knowledge of the business, having been at Bentley for 20 plus years and understanding many different areas of the business from engineering and product line. So that really helps me bridge the gap. And understand the problems and how to solve them, and then bring the data expertise in to solve that. But yeah, I think then there is definitely a role for a data translator, because certainly as you talk of data as a product, when you get to that level of maturity, then having effectively a product owner for a data product that's able to establish what the value is, because of course we have to justify the investment. We can't just have it as data offices often end up as being cost centers, because it's a significant investment into a data cloud using all the technology, that you have to show the value, and you have to start with that as well. So we are definitely using our planning increment process to triage the priorities based on business case. But yeah, I think the role of data translator, we haven't officially got a data translator, but I can see that certainly unofficially as a role developing in the future.
And I think you are in a good place because you come from that business. So you understand the business, you speak the language. Can you give me maybe an example, if something top of your mind, where you had to explain something that was complex and you had to translate it into something that people with an automotive background can understand and can understand the importance? Any favorite analogies?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, certainly to start with, when you're trying to build a data cloud, is justifying the investment. Because almost if you start with a single use case and people already have a visualization because they've connected straight to the raw data, they're not going to see a change overnight just because you've introduced best in breed tools to give them a solution a different way. So you have to continually articulate the benefit of bringing data together into a single repository. Again, governance, the importance of governance. Why do we need roles of data owners and data stewards? To make sure that we've got that single source of truth. Keep talking about the value of building this. Almost, it's like an iceberg, isn't it? The below the waterline investment required to underpin the above the waterline benefits that people actually see.
Yeah, but to what do you connect it? That's what you just gave us is like what every chief data officer has to do. And I'm sure you're doing it fabulously at Bentley because you have that business background. What do you connect, let's say, a data governance program? Like, what are the benefits that you try to educate people on or try to convince people on?
And I think it's going in stages, isn't it? And I have to be very careful not to overpromise in the first instance, because we need to get the basics right. Yes. But I think it's going on that journey rather than, it's focusing on the pain points, isn't it? If your pain point is you have to go to an analyst to generate an Excel report every month, and every time you have a new question, you have to go back to the analyst and get the data recut, you can show the improvement straight away by presenting that in a modern visualization tool. Then there's still a bit of a pain point because people can't connect to the right data that they want all the time. So that's where the investment of the data cloud comes in. And I think it's just showing that then the enrichment as well, how the benefits of joining multiple data sources together to give an overall end-to-end picture in a single place, it just really reinforces that journey of getting value from data.
That's a good pitch. Thank you. Well done. I think it's a good example of how you can basically try to communicate what we do, because very often it ends up to be very complex what we do, and communicating that in a simpler way is, I think, incredibly powerful. But coming back to the data literacy program, so how many people did you actually train?
So far we've got over 500 people through White Belt already, and we've got around 150 at Blue Belt so far, with plans to scale further. So it's considering we're 12 months into the delivery of it, after having established it and socializing it, then it's really gaining momentum, which is great to see.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's out of 4,000 people at Bentley. Yeah. So you have every one in four people, more than 1 in 4 people has been
And we're
trained.
really trying to engage at all levels of the business, even with manufacturing colleagues as well, to try and make the training accessible, because they have a real impact on how data's collected. If you're a quality inspector, then how you record that quality data has a real impact downstream in the post-processing. So it's great to engage everybody.
Wow, that's an impressive result. And did you see any effects of that? You know, I mean, so many people trained. Are more people approaching you now? Is there something? You know, do you sense something going on?
So I think this is the interesting thing is which of the pillars is the most important. Because if you introduce the technology without the training, then it sits there on a shelf. If you introduce the training without the technology, then people are hungry for a solution that we can't offer yet. And of course, you need the governance hand in hand as well to make sure that we have genuinely got those data owners. So I think almost the biggest challenge is rolling everything out together. So maybe not running too far ahead with the training, running just fast enough so that people are thinking in the right way and asking the right questions, because then that then brings the technology and the processes behind as well, so that everything tries to move hand in hand. And because of course by doing the training, everyone's going, great, we want these outcomes from data. How can we access all this data together at once? And I'm like, I'm building a data cloud at the same time. It's not quite ready yet, but I'm glad the demand is building.
You know, that reminds me of an entrepreneur who said, you know, there are two ways being successful in business. Either you have a great product or you have a hungry crowd. And he said, like, the more likely success is with the hungry crowd. So if you are, you know, if you have a hot dog stand outside of a nightclub at 2 a.m. in the morning and everyone is coming out, you don't need good hot dogs. And the likelihood of success is really high. So maybe it's a good strategy to start with building that hungry crowd.
Yeah, and I think we, in parallel with the Data Dojo, we are doing community events as well. So we held a Bentley-wide data day last year, and we're building communities as well. And I think that helps to drive the conversation and drive the mindset change. And as you say, I like that analogy, a hungry crowd to really, because a lot of people are connecting with the message. A lot of people are, you know, sat trying to generate reports in their functions, have struggled for a long time with how do I get clean and governed data to be able to build the post visualizations. So there's a lot of people that have connected with the strategy very quickly, and then you get some early great use cases and great adoption, and then it scales from there.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's. I think this is the way. I think you've done everything right, and I know also that you know that for building out these capabilities, you need to build a great team, and I think that you have also quite an interesting approach in building the team. Your own team, to be able to give their hungry crowd what they are seeking.
Absolutely. So when I took on the data office, I brought in a combination of people. We had people within the business already in IT that understood some of the existing databases. So it was great to get their experience in. I went externally and recruited people that were data experts in other industries to get other perspectives in. But also underpinning that is the degree apprentices that I started the principle within digitization, because we could see then that skills such as data scientists were going to be in high demand in the future. And one great way of building the talent pipeline is building your own from the beginning. So in the UK, the degree apprenticeship scheme, it's called an apprentice levy in the UK. We have to keep a small amount of our payroll percentage to one side to reinvest in training. And then working with universities, we can deliver a data science degree, but rather than 3 years full-time, it's 4 years part-time, and you spend 80% of your time in the business working on real projects. And I've seen some real success now because I've got people on every year of that degree coming through. So it's a great peer community as well of second years helping first years and so on. They're getting great experience in the business. They're able to bring in a fresh mindset as well. People straight from school that are, grown up in a digital environment, grown up with smartphones. are able to bring in a different perspective with people like me that grew up when smartphones didn't exist. So it's great to get a different mindset in as well. And we're seeing some really great people coming through that program.
And it's a great alternative to higher education, is that right? Like to going to university, because I think I did spend some time at a university in the UK. Doing my PhD, and I know that in the UK there's a big percentage of students or young adults who actually decide to go for a university degree, and it's quite costly, and it doesn't always return. Like it doesn't have a good return on investment for everyone, because it's quite costly. You don't earn anything for several years. You have to pay back your loan at some point, and an apprenticeship gives you direct access to some earnings. Is that right? Some wages, and it gives you also much better likelihood to keep a job, because you're basically working already for the company.
Yeah, it's a shame that schools are still very much encouraging people to go directly to university, because I see there's three key advantages to doing the apprenticeship. One is definitely the cost. Rather than having to pay for the degree yourself, the cost of the degree is covered, and you're actually earning quite a good salary as well. The apprentice salary is quite a good salary as well. And you get the benefit of being an employee at Bentley. You get access to Volkswagen Group cars, and you get other benefits as well as an employee. So the first benefit is the money. The second benefit is the learning style. A lot of people might not benefit from a purely theoretical learning style. Learning by doing and by applying that learning immediately in the workplace really helps with the learning style and understanding as well. If you're learning how to do data modeling or data science, but you're actually applying it with real data, with a real business problem and a real outcome, then it helps the learning experience. And the third benefit is absolutely the experience that these people will gain. By the time you've spent 4 years going through the program, you've engaged with the business, you're able to deal with different business stakeholders, you've got evidence of delivering data products, you've got such a great CV at the end of it that your peers that have been straight to university will not be able to match that work experience. You've got a real head start in your career.
That's a great way, I think, for a lot of young people to get into data. And I think it must be wonderful to start at Bentley and doing that, actually.
And it is definitely a real pleasure of the job to see people from different backgrounds and, straight from school, 18-year-olds straight from school, never been in a business before, how they grow as individuals and professionals over the 4 years is a real pleasure of the job.
Amazing. Yeah, it's such an important time of their lives. A lot of things are shaped during these years. Wonderful. And there's another aspect of data culture, which is a little bit more meaty, and that is data governance, because it is such a cultural topic. And at the same time, there are certain expectations that data governance needs to meet. How did you approach data governance at Bentley?
So the first step was to pull together a data council. So that data council is it's chaired not only by myself, but also the CISO and also the data protection officer to look after together how we get value from and control and govern the data. And we went around each functional area to get a senior leader to be nominated to represent their function, to join the data council in terms of helping us shape the strategy, getting value from the data, but also embedding the importance of good governance and good ownership of the data. So that was the first step, and then we'll build the data catalog is almost a byproduct of the governance, because that data catalog is the golden record, if you like, of how to find who owns the data, how it's processed, where the single source of truth is. And again, storytelling is really important, because there's lots of examples across the business of how we've, let's say, taken different cuts of data. If you process it on a daily rather than a monthly basis, or you take a local data cut and you process it yourself, and then the sum never is the same as the parts. there's plenty of pain points that you can identify. Headcount data, again, everyone has their own way of showing the headcount data, and ultimately there's only one number at the top of the business. So by continuing to focus on the pain points and articulating how we're going to go on that journey then of, let's take the quality data then. We have one way of measuring and capturing the quality data. We should have a single source of truth for it. We should understand how that's calculated and disseminated. There is efficiency in delivering one top-level dashboard. So there are numerous forums, let's say, that would consume that top-level dashboard. One dashboard would serve multiple purposes, but also ensuring that that high-level dashboard can be drilled down to a functional and team level, so that the data that's relevant to you locally feeds into the same picture that is available at a summary level.
So sounds like you have a very structured plan that you're on. Did you encounter any challenges?
I think it's initial buy-in is good because people recognize the pain points. But then you have to go through the detail of the data mapping exercise and go, right, who is actually going to be the data owner and the data steward for this? Because I can't be the data owner for everything. I don't understand the detail of each database across the business. So that's then the challenge of, actually, you're on the journey, you understand, but actually you're going to have to get people involved in being the data owners, data stewards locally. So, there becomes some... despite the pain points being clear, there is still some resistance on that journey, and it's a change, isn't it? Any change will undertake resistance, but it's change is pain. No one said transformation was easy, but it's continually.
That's not what you signed up for. You knew
we
that
did
at
know
the beginning when you signed up.
Absolutely, yes, and the change program is always going to be key because it's a human problem, right? The technology is always going to be there, but taking people on that journey with you and keeping them engaged and celebrating the successes where there are the early adopters is always going to be important.
Oh yeah. And is there anything that you think is a good recipe, anything that you discovered so far to get people on this long run? Well, I think there are two things here. One is get them sign up for such things, like put up their hand and say, yes, I want to act as a data owner. And then the second piece is keeping them engaged in that role. Any things you learned so far, that can help?
I think the most important thing is momentum, because as you say, there's that initial excitement of, great, we're going to suddenly have all our data resolved, but it's not a quick process, and continuing to show progress, I think, is really important, and communicate that process as well. So we started off by saying, this is what we want to do. Then we piloted it and said, here's how we've done it in the first instance and shown the results. Now we're going to go to the next area. Then we're going to go to the next area. And it's just really, keeping that momentum really. And through communication, through showing results, through, constantly knocking down any barriers if there are any.
Which area did you start?
So we actually started with the quality data because we knew it was in high demand. But we also knew it was pretty well understood, the ownership already. So, and it was a great functional sponsor as well. So it always helps to have good functional sponsors that are willing to go on that journey with you. And they've been on the journey for a while now and understand the benefits. So are also willing to help show how to get that journey as well.
Isn't that lovely? Starting with quality, data about quality, improving the quality of the data about quality
of the product as well.
At a brand like Bentley, where quality probably is something very important in your tradition.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that was a smart move, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know as we. Yes, thank you for that. I'll take that away and repackage that internally. That's a great storyline.
I mean, that's what Bentley stands for: high quality, luxury. But luxury, isn't anything without quality.
Absolutely, and we do invest a lot in the high quality of our products. Yes. So helping to share that message is super important.
Wonderful, and one of the big overarching challenges that you mentioned was actually technology. So usually everyone says, like the general wisdom in the data community is don't start with technology, but you're getting at the point where technology is actually the problem. And to a degree, technology is also the solution for some of your problems. Is that a fair statement where you know, and this is where you're investing right now quite a lot as well?
Yeah, and I think back to the point of where we started with visualization, that one tool on its own is not the full picture. And I think more and more in modern data stacks, having being able to plug and play the latest technology. So I think a single vendor lock-in is no longer the right way to go, because a single vendor won't be a specialist in all the elements that you need, from ETL through to storage, through to observability and so on. So being able to bring best of breed together that's right for Bentley. So we need, let's say, low-code tools that are available to deploy quickly, so that I don't have to have big technical teams supporting them. A lot of the usability is built in with the tool. So I think that helps with the journey. And again, we've got 60 plus data sources, from on-prem SQL and Oracle databases through to external databases and so on. Being able to talk between those different platforms is really important as well. So I think that's the kind of the thing that we need to check from a technical basis, that a single solution, unless you're starting from a greenfield site and or willing to lock yourself into a single vendor, I think certainly any legacy business has to be able to have that interoperability across multiple platforms.
And I guess you have two aspects there. One is the one of fragmentation, and the second aspect is the one of cloudification or modernization, because you have both challenges. You have all these separate sources, and you come like all companies come from a time where you were working more on silos. And creating a unified view on data, like you mentioned in the beginning, is a fundamental to your strategy for connected car, connected factory, and connected customer or retail. So you have to handle both things at the same time. You know, find a way to bring those sources together, but at the same time, you need to invest in going into the cloud, into some level of migration, I believe. Is you know, how is that going, and what is the plan?
Yeah, so I think we're not looking to replace every transactional database, because it makes sense to have the transactional database close to source and on-prem in many circumstances. This is more about building the post-processing capability, and rather than having 10 connections to that one on-prem database, you have a single connection into the cloud. That many technologies these days are cloud-based anyway, so you can then bring the cloud-based tools on top. So that's really the benefit of scaling the cloud solution, is you can quickly bring different post-processing solutions onto that single ingested source of data.
And I think you're moving to one of the large cloud data clouds, you could say, and connecting to it. What kind of journey is that? Is that multi-year? Is that a lot of effort? Is that, you know, is that something that is fairly easy to do?
Yeah, and I think the first use case is always the hardest, because cloud first is not, let's say, built into the automotive psyche. Automotive is very risk adverse and on-prem first historically. So I think, and that's starting to change, but that's the journey you've got to go on. The first time you set up that pipeline out of your on-premise security perimeter into a virtual environment, then you have to make sure that the security is in place and it's properly governed and it is going to be secure and so on. So the first use case is always going to be the hardest to get over the line. And then it's prioritizing where to go after that first use case has been delivered.
And I guess sitting close to the CISO
absolutely
is helping here, because that's a big proportion, isn't it? Like how to securely and safely.
Yeah. So yes, he has a keen interest in how we secure and then maintain and monitor the security of that data.
And then you have the architecture leader next to you as well. So that person would be critical also in driving the performance of that. And
yeah, absolutely. It's working. Again, a challenge is even within IT, the language that we use, the language an architect uses, to a language a security expert uses, to the language a data expert uses, they're all subtly different. So we do have to spend a lot of time understanding each other's perspectives and what's important to each other and how to move forward together. So yeah, that's data to business is one challenge, but even data within IT is different people's backgrounds and experiences. We need to bring that together towards a common goal. The devil is always in the detail.
And so what, I think it's pretty smart to think in terms of use cases, even in such infrastructure projects. What was the first use case you built in such an environment, or I am basically in the progress of
and I think that this is where a single use case is really difficult, because to go to a data cloud requires a level of investment even for a single use case.
Yes.
So you almost have to encourage that leap of faith that one first use case will scale and multiply later on. Our finance board member even challenged me this year on our objective setting. Why aren't you getting more value quicker? And it's like, I'll take more of a challenge next year, but I need to get the basic infrastructure first. So I think that is a constant balance of you have to invest first to get the first use case through, and then show the ability to scale it, because it's only in year 2, year 3 that you really start to leverage the benefit of delivering the cloud transformation. So yeah, there is a balance of how to justify the cost in the first instance, but again, showing that potential to keep the investment and the interest.
So it's interesting because what you're describing is basically a delayed gratification. So we are living in an instant gratification world, in particular with the consumers, but also now I think with a lot of business executives. And I think those are long and big bets that you need to place. At the same time, I guess there might be some expectations from the board raised through social media, through all this noise we have in our industry. How do you deal with that? How do you reset expectations? I mean, people want to have, I'm sure somebody came to you, hey, Andy, can't you build the Bentley advisor, next month? ChatGPT has done it.
Yeah.
Google has done something similar. Why can't you do that?
There is always an appetite to move faster. Absolutely. But then it's balancing how much you're willing to invest to get there, isn't it? And coming back to the core of going on that journey. If you want to go faster, then you need to invest more to go there quicker. And that's possible, but maybe we're not willing to invest to go all in straight away because we can't afford to, or it's not the main priority. It's constantly balancing that appetite for the solution today whilst building what has to be a scalable and maintainable underpinnings that we can go forward. All the hype around Gen AI. We've seen plenty of pilot use cases, but not many people are able to scale those use cases to large value because you have to get the basics right still. You can't have an AI strategy without a data strategy underpinning it. So time taken to get the basics right will pay dividends later on when we can build the post-processing products later once we've got the basics in place.
And I guess, in a highly exclusive market with premium and luxury products, you have a smaller customer base, and the expectation of that customer base is very, very high. So I think that also prevents you from doing these fast pilots that, are medium quality, but it's okay in a mass market, and it's a gimmick in a mass market. But
yeah, and I think you're right. We talked about the reputation of Bentley, and yeah, you only get one chance with a reputation. So yeah, we really don't want to risk launching a rogue chatbot. Whereas luxury is still talking to a person, but augmenting that person with a wide range of information. So an example of that is our factory tour is a great asset to us. A lot of customers are really excited to come to the factory and see the cars being built and see the craftsmanship in action, to see the balance of digital and physical. But what we can help with very quickly is giving the tour guides a lot more information about the customer. So is the customer a qualified prospect? Are they a repeat customer? Do they have a fleet of 10 Bentleys already? And then where their Bentley is in the build process. So if a customer is doing a tour of production and goes, oh, I love those wheels, for example, I love that style of wheel. If the tour guide is then able to tap into the information to say where that car is in the build process, they can say, oh, actually, we've just caught it in time. We can offer you an upgrade if you're willing to sign up now. And then I think that's where data really augments rather than takes over the personalization journey and that hyper-personalization. It just means that all that information is brought quicker to the fingertips, but still that one-to-one relationship is there to be able to do that final transaction.
Yeah. I actually read that in private banking, it's actually something that you want to avoid. You want your wealthy customers to call you so at least you can say, hello, how are you? How are your kids? Do you want to pass by anytime? Kind of thing. Like you help them, but it's also a way of keeping in touch. While if you automate that, you take that opportunity of a customer touch point and building that trust away. So maybe something to
absolutely
think of.
And I think it's building a community as well, because it is effectively a community of high net worth individuals that can come together. They can come on some of our drive events that we do, or some of our other events together. So it's part of that whole experience, really. And being a Bentley customer is more than just the car itself. It's the whole personalization journey. It's the lifestyle access. It's the luxury today is less about ownership and more about experience. That's a real cutting edge of luxury these days. And of course, building and those human connections can absolutely be augmented with data rather than replaced by data.
Wonderful. Yes. So that's a great perspective. So maybe a good final question would be, where do you see data going in the automotive sector, maybe also in luxury?
And I think, the dream is this invisible magic, isn't it, that comes together for the customer journey. So I, as the end customer, shouldn't necessarily perceive any difference, or the interaction still feels very human. But how we can link lifestyle to vehicle to service and link all the aspects of ownership together in one seamless journey, it's a really enriching opportunity to bring all these data sources together and drive that forwards, especially as connected car generates more data and social media and so on. We can join all that together with data to give that really rich picture and ultimately a really rich customer journey
for rich customers. Perfect. Thank you so much, Andy. This was a fabulous conversation. I learned so much about luxury automotive and also a lot about how to democratize data and creating data culture. I think you made some fabulous experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Boric Data Masterclass, where great data journeys begin.